You're joking, aren't you? It's the Teesside Chef. Today, let's make the crispiest hash browns possible and explore why Americans are wrong. Not about everything, just some things, like how to make the crispiest hash browns, the various charms of James Corden, etc. We'll need some floury spuds, the kind that make good chips and roast potatoes, and once peeled and washed, we can try and stack them attractively for the camera, which is a task that is easier said than done, to be honest. To be fair, I bought a box grater especially for this video from a pound shop, which charges more than £1 for most things these days, and it broke immediately, which probably says more about my poor choices than it does the relative merits of frugality. But once I stopped applying improper tensile forces to my pound shop tat, I was able to find a suitable camera angle and grate the potato satisfactorily. Now for the next stage, Americans will suggest that you wash the grated potato to remove the starch, and I can understand why they do this. Hash browns were originally created in American diners where the grated potato would sit potentially for hours before being cooked to order. Washing prevents oxidization and discolouring, but you're introducing a lot more moisture, which you absolutely don't want, and then the potato has to be clumsily dried, which makes a terrible mess, which is incredibly annoying, cringeworthy, unfunny, and talentless. The best thing to do is place your freshly grated potato in a sieve atop a large bowl, introduce a generous pinch of salt, and then mix the whole thing very thoroughly to incorporate, just like this, after which you'll have about 15 minutes free, and that's enough time to watch some carpool karaoke videos on YouTube, but only if you're looking for reasons to kill yourself. And in that 15 minutes of torture, the salt will leach out the moisture and starch from the potatoes, which will ensure that we have the very best material with which to make the crispiest hash browns. But unfortunately, gravity cannot do all of the work, so you will still need to go in and give the potatoes a good squeeze to remove as much moisture as you can. And this can be quite the tonic if you're feeling any frustration and anger from being exposed to an overblown ego on legs, who is about as amusing as face cancer. You can see how much moisture we have removed from the potatoes there, along with the white sludge that is potato starch, proving that the salting method is much more effective to give us a dry, starchless mass that we can now form into thin, hash brown discs. And the potato should hold together just enough to make them friable, but do take a bit of time to form each one properly. Now, James Corden enabling Americans will suggest that you fry in clarified butter, which involves melting butter, evaporating the water, removing the milk solids, which is an enormous faff. Plus, if you don't get it perfect, your pan will spit like Jamie Carragher, and any remaining milk solids will burn as your hash browns cook. So don't be daft. You need a fat with a high smoke point that gives amazing flavour. So there really is only one thing to use, and that is lard. And be generous, because hash browns will hoover up an almost illegal amount of fat or oil while cooking, which is kind of part of their charm, really, I suppose. I have my pan on a medium heat here, maybe a smidge more than medium, and I want the melted lard to be hot before the hash browns go in. And one of the main reasons we need a fat with a high smoke point is because to get the crispiest texture, our hash browns are going to need to cook for quite a while. We don't want to mess about with them too much because we need them to hold together, and some of that fat is just going to sit there getting very hot, and if that's butter or olive oil, it will burn, and going around and pressing down with a spatula or similar is about all of the fannying about you really want to be doing here. So cooking time, I like to cook the first side for around 3 to 4 minutes until there's a light crust developing and I'm sure that everything is holding together, and then I'll flip and cook for another 3 to 4 minutes on the other side, and I always make sure to press down again to compress the potato to encourage the bonding. And you might find your pan getting a little dry at this point, so add a little more lard in there or similar high smoke point oil or fat, and I'm making sure, of course, that the extra fat is distributed evenly. But again, I'm not going in there and pissing about with stuff too much, and then I'll flip again and cook for another 2 to 3 minutes depending on the colour of my hash browns. And I find that the double cooking method gives the best crisp because you're always wanting to release steam, and flipping a couple of times will really help with that. And you can see the lovely golden colour here, no dark burnt bits, just a lovely even fry. And I'll flip again and cook for another 2 to 3 minutes. And if you're finding that you're not achieving this beautiful deep golden colour, you can crank up the heat a little towards the end, where you will then have a plateful of beautiful, crispy, tasty, one ingredient hash browns. And To prove to you that my techniques make the very crispiest hash browns in all of Christendom, let's do the scrape test. And let's listen to the crunch when I eat one. Delightful, delightful. And apropos of nothing, go fuck yourself, James Corden. Terra.